I got a cup of tea, Indian curry.
Today I'm interviewing Steve Evans. When I went to go edit the video for Steve's interview, it did not come through. Amateur move. We talked about his 2018 Speedway plans, the Winter Invitational, his first car, his favorite food, and just a whole bunch of other stuff. Here's the interview with Steve Evans. Let's talk about the Winter Invitational first. And how did it come about, the Winter Invitational?
Well, we've wanted to do a big event at Paris for some time. Aaron Fox was definitely instrumental in this. He came up with the idea, and there were similar events run at Paris several years ago when Carrie Hancock was the promoter. So we wanted to bring that concept back and start our season with a huge event. And it's exceeded all expectations so far.
Who's helping you out with the Paris event?
Well, it's a team activity. I mean, the guys at Paris Raceway that run the Southern California Flat Track Association, they do the track prep for us. They give us a turnkey facility to come into, so they need a lot of credit. On the promotion end, Aaron's helped a lot, but the biggest help's always crazy Chris Ackerman, because though he's the track announcer, he does way more than that. He's behind the scenes promoting, designing, marketing, getting us seen in new areas, because we want to, on the day, we have our usual crew of Danny Hull, Tom Fox, Jesse, Jackie, Kevin Fife, Dan Eddy, and loads of people, Peter Davenport, a bunch of people I probably haven't mentioned who will kill me, but I just can't get everyone's name off the cuff, so I'm getting off.
I saw Chris has a shirt that will be available too, the 2018 version.
Yeah, we're making a t-shirt for Paris Raceway for the season. We haven't had a Paris shirt for about 10 years, and all of the profit from the shirt sales is going to go into a riders prize fund for the team racing series that happens in the early part of next year. So we want to, help exchange with our riders and use the shirt sales to pump up and improve our show after the first race.
Any type of spectator information, like what time does the races start in Paris?
The races are scheduled to start at 5 o'clock. We are really amazed with the rider signups now, not just with the deep invitational field, but the other classes as well. It's been an interesting season for American Speedway, because I think every track, whether they're a weekly venue or one-offs like myself, have struggled with the rider count. And it seems like this race, it's just exploded. So there's a chance we may run some of the other classes earlier. We will give a final call on that after the weekend and give everybody enough time.
Are you having to bring in like extra grandstands, and will there be a snack bar available for food?
There is a grandstand on the front straight. There's other seating. Also with Paris, with the way it's laid out, it's a unique track where there is no front and back gate. There is just a gate. One of the advantages is that it's an open pit, so fans can mingle between pits and grandstands. So we expect it to be quite full, but there's definitely a way to fit everybody in quite easily. As far as snack bar, they have a snack bar at the track where you can buy your burgers, hot dogs, tea, coffee, nachos. If you want a proper drink, because it's close to Christmas, you can bring a cooler as long as it's kept in the grandstand and there's no glass.
What about rider information? What's going to be your format, your Division 1 format?
The Division 1 format is going to run a Grand Prix format, so it's going to be 16 riders, 20 qualification heats where every rider meets every other rider once and once only. You get every gate at least one time, and then the top 8 transfer to the semis where it gets exciting, more exciting, and it'll be sudden death elimination semifinals, and first and second from each semi to the final, and then it's all to race for.
Is there any plans yet for the clubman and sport divisions?
I've started drafting it yesterday, actually. I haven't quite got a format down. We want to give everybody enough track time. We also, have a certain time window to run, and we also have that the invitational part of the program, has enough prominence in the program. So we're going to have to work out what to do with all of this. Normally, my first track was Victorville, and it was more like we're always scrambling for riders at Victorville. So normally I've had to create something out of nothing. This is the opposite for me, to create, a program out of what is a very heavily booked rider count. But we'll find a way. We'll make everyone happy, and we'll make sure that everyone knows ahead what the format is. So so they know what they're coming for.
Are you going to run a practice just before the race?
No practice. We're just going to preserve the track and go straight into the show. So it's going to be national anthem will be at 4:55, and then the first race of the Invitational will go on the track at 5 o'clock sharp.
Are you going to have sound checks there at Paris?
Yes, it should be fine, but the riders do need to be prepared. Last year we had, Rick Richards has got to be hugely acknowledged, and has been, and probably will be until the end of time, for keeping us open last year, because he created this baffle that brought the sound levels down, which didn't affect bike performance or engine wear. It just worked great. This year things have relaxed, and they're going under AMA standards, which is 105 decibels. I think it's 20 centimeters from the pipe. And when we did our very first sound test, I believe out of 22 bikes, there were 4 that were either 106 or 107. So they were there or thereabouts, but you're going to have to get there early enough to pass sound, because if you don't pass sound, you can't race. And there's also going to be likely a random check or two during the show to make sure that you're running the pipe that pass sound. And worst case scenario, if your muffler won't pass sound, you can just stick on the baffle and just run with that, because that'll bring it like well under 105.
Do you have a curfew that night?
Curfew is 10 o'clock. There will be 2 track preps, and the track preps are quite extensive. They're about 15 or 20 minutes. They literally redo the entire track. We're going to run a format where we'll run 2 heats of the Invitational, then a couple of heats of Pee-wees or 150s, then the second round of Invitational heats, then everything else, then a prep, and we'll repeat that throughout the evening.
What is your 2018 Speedway schedule looking at and plans?
It's probably going to replicate pretty much what we did this year. We're going to run Paris through April. Then Ventura and Santa Maria are going to run Speedway programs. It'll be a combination of what we've done last year, where there's an AMA National Championship round at each track. And the other races will be a combination event with flat track, speedway, and sidecars, where people can come out and get some big track time. We expect to be back at Ridgecrest for a one-off event. There's 1 or 2 other venues in the works, which I think one of them looks pretty good. The other one is too early to say. And then, of course, somewhere along the Speedway World Cup gets thrown in. The Grand Prix schedule came out today, the day we're recording this. The World Cup schedule may be out when we publish this, but right now, the schedule of the Speedway World Cup is really what dictates everything else.
Any special plans for April 19th event at Paris?
Well, it's going to be a fundraiser for Team USA. So we definitely, the whole Speedway World Cup it's an interesting animal, because we're the only country that has to fly in riders from another continent. The Australians have a rider pool of at least 20 guys in Europe, so they have more than enough. Last year, we had 1 European rider and 4 that flew in. So the overhead that gives us is quite dramatic. And so we do depend on a combination of various things to just cover the basic overhead, which is the some funding from the AMA that helps us, some funding from the FIM, which is based on what position we finish. You get a certain amount of funding from the FIM. Then the rest of it comes from corporate sponsorship and fans. It's an interesting thing, because the AMA and FIM funding is appreciated, but it's only about 30% of the basic budget, and the basic budget is doing everything at a minimum.
I noticed you have a little bit of an accent. Where'd you grow up?
I'm from Wolverhampton, England, and so Wolverhampton is a very famous speedway town. It's also got a sometimes successful, sometimes frustrating professional soccer team. It's an old industrial town, lots of good pubs, lots of good Indian food. Love going back there. And my first exposure with Speedway was back in 1984, when my dad persuaded me to go to a Wolverhampton Speedway match when I was 12. And it was Wolves Racing Bellevue. And the Wolverhampton team that night had Dennis Sigalos, Robert Fetzing, and Steve Lucero racing for Wolves. So that's where the whole American Speedway thing kicked off, because there was something about the Americans that just first time I went there. So it was That was my first dice with destiny, I think.
Who was your favorite Speedway rider to begin with?
Well, my first one was Sigalos, but he got injured pretty quickly after I got into Speedway. So I only saw him race twice, but he was just majestic. And then by the time I came back, I didn't go for 2 years. And then when I came back, Sam Ermolenko was the captain of Wolverhampton. And it was an absolute privilege to watch Sam race every Monday, just entertain, and really encourage the team. And then after that, Ronnie Corrie joined the team in 1987, and he was there for off and on for over 15 years, and he was just spectacular and a really nice guy. And then after that, there was other Americans that rode for Wolverhampton that made their mark with me. But as far as top riders that I really admire, Peter Carlson and Michael Max and Freddie Lincoln, hit the spot with that.
What are the biggest differences with Speedway in Great Britain and America?
Well, in Great Britain, 95% of the events are team races, and it's like going to a football game or a baseball game. You have the team race, and that's generally it. It's 50, and it's all done in 90 minutes. And some tracks do have what they call a second half, but it's a standard that you could consider to like D3 over here. Some have junior races, but it's very minimal. Whereas in America, a typical event is 2.5 to 3 hours, sometimes longer, and literally, most anyone of any level can come and race. So each has its pros and cons, and I think each can learn more from each other. And partly why we do team racing at Paris is because it's what I grew up with, and I think it's something that should be done more in America, at every track.
Do you have a favorite team you like to see get beat in British Speedway?
It used to be Cradley Heath, because this was the most fantastic Speedway rivalry, because Cradley was 7 miles from Wolverhampton, and you had two very well supported teams 7 miles from each other. Each team had some of the best riders in the world, and those matches were just absolutely insane. The riders went for it, and the fans were definitely having some interesting conversations, and it was Speedway at its ultimate. Right now, there's not a team I like to see beat, really. Wolves have a great rivalry right now with Bellevue, just because they've been contending in so many big matches in playoffs over the last 2 years. And I think Bellevue is a club that's on the up, and it's good to have a rival. I think it's great for Speedway. So I certainly like to beat Bellevue, but last time we raced, they beat us, and it was perhaps their time.
I thought about this crazy idea. Do you think there's any way we could bring a Speedway team over to the United States, kind of like we do with football or soccer, as we call it, teams? Do you think that's a possibility for a week?
It would be a great thing, particularly if it could be done on a pre-season basis where they could go around particular venues. We'd be running races in February, which isn't necessarily a problem, climate-wise for us. But it really comes down to the main question is, who the heck's going to fund it? Because the British League teams, even though you can race professionally, they do run on a very tight overhead. They don't have probably the 50 grand in the bank it would take for them to ship their bikes and send their riders to do something like this. And equally, there's not a spare 50 grand, I think, lying around in American Speedway where we could bring these guys over.
Have you ever thought about doing a travel trip where you go to the British Grand Prix and some team racing?
As in fans?
Yes.
Yeah, it's crossed my mind. I think it'd be a good thing. Obviously, Speedway World Cup is an all-consuming, it sounds glamorous and glorious, and it has its moments of that for sure, but it's a ton of work both ahead and during. And with the rest of my life and my family and everything else, there's a limit to the time I can give to Speedway, particularly Speedway World Cup. Speedway World Cup is something where none of the management that I've worked with, and I've worked with 3 different managers now, none of the managers or staff get paid for doing it. We do it as unpaid volunteers, and just indirectly or directly several $1,000 each a year just to do it. So a tour to Cardiff or to a Grand Prix would be great. I would love to go to a Grand Prix. I haven't been to one for over 10 years, but it's just a case of, with all of the weekends that Speedway takes for me here and with the World Cup, I'm glad when I don't have to go and I can just do normal stuff with the wife and kids,
What was the first Speedway race you promoted?
The first one was unofficial. It was really funny. It was at a track at the Elsinore Motocross Complex, and it was ahead of the very first American Dream Team tour. So this would have been at the end of 2004, and it was literally on a Saturday lunchtime. A guy, Jerry Litton, had the practice track at Elsinore. It was European size, so we ran a team event with the Dream Team contenders and a few riders. It was a 15-heat English style match, and the riders came, and it was mentioned on the speedwaybikes.com website, but only 3 spectators showed up. We didn't charge them. It was almost like, we just covered the cost of the track rental, and it was just a bit of fun. So that was the first venture into promotion, which was somewhat unofficial. The first full-on race I did was Victorville, 4th of July, 2006.
What is your proudest moment in promoting Speedway?
There's many. Certainly some standout moments would be this year's Speedway World Cup was profound because those young kids just did something very special and very exceptional. So that's a good memory. Certainly, we did a qualifier in Hungary in 2013 without Greg Hancock because they happened to schedule it the same day as a Grand Prix. And so we were not favored to qualify, and we're in this Eastern European country, and we have a terrible start to the race. We're just not making it happen. And then halfway through, we turned it around. So to come back from nothing there was something. When we came within 1 heat of making the final in Prague the same year, that was special. As far as things in America, there's special memories at every track. I think getting Ventura back is fantastic, and the fact that it's 5 years into AMA national championships and it just produces blistering European style racing, that will be up there. But I just enjoy it. I'm an enthusiast, and that's where it comes from at heart. And for as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm going to keep doing it.
Any preparation secrets into building a quality Speedway racetrack?
For me, it's having someone that can do it for me, that knows what they're doing. With the nature of my promotions, I've always worked with either a co-promoter, a place like Paris, where they take care of that. So we do give them advice on what to do, but it's pretty much at the hands of the promoter. We are going to definitely improve and change the surface at Santa Maria for next year because there were issues in that national round. It was our first attempt at that, and we all know it can be better, and we have high standards, and it will be better next year. But all the same, it's already improved since then.
I always ask the kids this question, and now it's your time. What's your favorite food to eat?
Favorite food? My favorite English food is Indian curry, a chicken tikka masala, which I'm going to have one tomorrow night if anyone's interested. Since I came to California, I like sushi. I try to eat well, but an occasional binge is good too.
Where's your favorite place to eat curry in Southern California?
Anakali Indian restaurant, which is in Hollywood on Melrose and La Brea. I've been going there since 1998. I probably took about 50 people there, and they just give a good curry, and they always look after me and the family.
Are you ever going to serve curry at a racetrack or bring a curry food truck to a race?
That is a fantastic concept, and we should do it. So whoever wrote that question has changed my life.
Do you still have the money jacket?
No, I got rid of it. I moved house in June, and just it didn't make the cut.
Besides Speedway taking up all your time, do you have a real full-time job?
Yeah, Speedway, I've got to have a real job because Speedway, kind of just floats itself. If it does well, great, but I certainly can't make a living out of it. So I've got a number of things that I do. I work with a management consulting company called ExecTech, and we go into small businesses, mainly dental offices and medical offices, and we put in certain blueprints to make their office run more smoother. I tend to work with good professional people and try to enhance, their business or themselves personally.
Growing up in Great Britain, what was your first car?
I can send you a picture of it because I have one somewhere. It was an Austin Allegro, which is an absolute grim dreadful thing to own. It didn't, I was 18 years old. It cost me 350 quid, 350 pounds, which is about $500 from a friend of a friend. And it served me well. But it was, it was not a looker. So I don't think I got many girls from my car. It must have been from my sparkling personality or something.
All right, Steve, thank you for the interview, and I'll see you at Paris.
Great. Thanks for your time. I appreciate your work promoting our sports. And yeah, look forward to seeing everyone at the big race. Hello, my name's Steve Evans, and I will be at the Paris Speedway Winter Invitational on December 9th. Be there. I've got a cup of tea, Indian curry.
I'd like to give thanks to two people this week, Kelly Inman, Dave Joyner. And Kelly Inman is the director at Industry Speedway. He puts together the Gunmetal Rally, which will be March 10th and 11th this year, the AMA FIM Youth Silver Cup Championships, which will be August 12th and free to attend, usually an AMA National Round, California State Championship. He's also a former rider, pitman. I'll put a link to kellyspeedwaybike.com profile down below. I'd like to thank Dave Joyner, who's the director of Fast Fridays up in Auburn. He put together 20 events in 2017, which included the AMA 250, 150 championships, the 25-lap challenge, North versus South, USA versus the world, and the final round of the AMA National Championship Series. The big thanks to Kelly Inman and Dave Joyner. Thank you for all the hard work you guys put into Speedway.